All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the 4-Hour Work Week.
Ah, classic. A book that really shook things up, right?
No kidding. And I know a lot of you out there wanted us to break down the core principles of the book and, more importantly, how to actually apply them in real life. So
So we're diving into this expanded and updated edition, the whole nine yards.
you got it. And just a heads up, Tim Ferriss, the author, he throws the whole traditional work-life balance thing right out the window.
Yeah. Instead, he's all about this, what's it called? New rich lifestyle with a big focus on time and mobility.
Exactly. But before we go too far, I got to ask, what really struck you about the book?
Hmm. Well, honestly, it's Tim Ferriss's own journey that really got me hooked. I mean, the guy is a kickboxing champion, tango dancer.
Wait, hold on, there's more, right?
Oh, yeah, serial entrepreneur, too.
Okay, so not your average desk jockey.
Yeah.
And from what I read, even with all that success, he was still feeling burnt out.
Totally, like disillusioned with the whole traditional grind. In fact, there's this crazy section in the book, he calls it a chronology of pathology. It basically tracks how he reached a breaking point.
Whoa, heavy stuff.
And then?
And then get this. He almost had a full-blown nervous breakdown after achieving his initial mini-retirement goal.
You're kidding, right?
Nope, that's the thing. It shows how ingrained these beliefs about work actually are. Even when you achieve what you think you want, it's still hard to make that mental shift to
Yeah.
really embrace a different lifestyle.
Wow. It makes you realize it's not just about the schedule, it's a whole mental overhaul. So speaking of mental overhauls, how does Ferriss actually define this whole new rich concept?
Okay, so it's way more than just escaping the 9 to 5 or even just working less. The new rich, he calls them NR, are all about something called relative income.
Relative income.
Yeah, it's not about how much money you actually make, but about the relationship between that income and the time you have to actually, enjoy it.
Mm.
Makes sense. I mean, think about two people making the same salary.
Right.
One works 80 hours a week, the other just 10. Who's actually wealthier in terms of time, freedom?
Exactly. And Ferriss argues that the NO folks, they get this, they live it. They're all about preventing unnecessary work, figuring out the minimum effective load instead of just celebrating like, oh, I can work whenever I want. There's this great example in the book, Dale Begsmith.
Okay, who's that?
So he's this world champion freestyle skier, but get this, he built this whole successful IT company at like 13 years old.
Whoa, hold on, 13. That's nuts.
Right, definitely challenges the whole sacrifice everything for success myth.
Big time. And speaking of challenging myths, Ferriss doesn't hold back, right? Everything popular is wrong. That's the title of one of his chapters.
Yeah, pretty bold, huh? But he makes a good point. The whole idea is that we need to question all those conventional wisdom kind of things, those rules we live by, which are mostly just self-imposed. He's got this great story about Chinese kickboxing. So he learned that you could actually win by strategically exploiting the rules without, like, breaking them.
I love that. It's like thinking outside the box, but still playing the game.
Exactly. We limit ourselves because we're so focused on following the rules instead of finding creative workarounds.
So true. But how does this apply to, work and income? Those feel pretty rigid, don't they?
That's where this whole rule-bending mindset comes in, right? Ferriss wants us to ask, what if our assumptions about success are actually holding us back? And that's where the whole relative income idea is super powerful because it makes you rethink your definition of wealth. What does success actually mean?
Okay, so we're questioning assumptions, redefining success. But let's be real, a lot of us are held back by plain old fear. How does Ferriss address that?
He tackles it head on with this thing he calls fear setting. So imagine your biggest fear, right? Quitting your job, starting a business, whatever it is. Now, ask yourself, what's the absolute worst case scenario?
Ooh, good question. I'd say probably being broke and living with my parents again.
Okay, fair enough. Now break that down. What concrete steps could you take to prevent that?
Oh,
And even if it did happen, how could you minimize the damage, get back on your feet?
okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
By walking through those questions, you realize your fears are often way more manageable than you think. He even tells the story about Hans, this lawyer terrified of leaving his super secure job.
Oh, right, I remember that one.
Until he does the fear-setting thing and realizes his worst-case scenario isn't so bad after all. And guess what? He ends up starting a surf company in Brazil.
So maybe living with my parents isn't the worst thing in the world.
Mm.
All right, so we've challenged assumptions, redefined success, faced our fears. What's next in Ferriss land?
Now comes the fun part. Designing your ideal lifestyle. Ferriss calls it dreamlining. You basically define your goals across 3 key areas. Being, doing, and having.
Like that exercise where you imagine having 100 million bucks and asking, what would I do if I had all the time and money in the world?
Exactly. It's about ditching those limiting beliefs and just dreaming big. What gets you excited to wake up in the morning? What impact do you want to have?
I like it. And then there's that whole deal framework, right?
Oh.
Definition, elimination, automation, liberation.
Yep. But he actually points out that the order switches if you're still working for someone else and want to achieve that NR lifestyle. It becomes delay.
Delay. So liberation comes first.
Exactly. If you're still tied to a desk, you got to focus on freeing yourself from that office environment before you can really dive into automation and true freedom.
So we've defined our dream lifestyle, confronted our fears, even started thinking about how to achieve it. But how do we actually get there? What are some of those practical steps?
That's where I'll pick up next time. We'll unpack Ferris's productivity hacks, how to manage information overload, and even the art of saying no. Get ready to challenge some more assumptions about how work should be done.
I'm already intrigued. See you next time. Welcome back. We've been unpacking the 4-hour work week, and last time, things got pretty deep. Redefining success, facing those fears head-on, even designing your dream lifestyle.
Big stuff, right? But now the question is, how do we put all this into action? Where's the practical side of things?
Exactly. And Tim Ferriss, he actually gives us a whole toolkit of strategies, and one that really stood out to me. It's this idea of a low-information diet,
Sounds a bit extreme when you first hear it, but think about it.
like cutting out all news completely. I don't know about that.
No, no, not completely. More like, what if you treated news like a fine wine? You savor a good, in-depth analysis maybe once a week instead of just chugging down daily headlines.
I can already feel my anxiety levels going down. Seriously, though, I spend so much time scrolling news feeds. It's overwhelming. How does Ferriss actually do it?
He's got some pretty strict rules, like when he's traveling, he only checks email once a week. But the key takeaway for me is being intentional. It's about choosing what info you consume and when, not just reacting to every news alert, every email. He schedules specific times for those things and sticks to it.
So it's about being selectively informed, not totally clueless. Okay, I like that. Are there specific, tactics he recommends? Because I'm ready to reclaim my attention span.
Oh, totally. One that's simple but powerful is batching those email checks. Instead of constantly breaking your flow to see what's new, pick 2 times a day. He suggests maybe noon and 4 p.m. and only check then.
I could see that making a huge difference. But what if something urgent comes up?
Ferriss has a solution for that too. He's big on autoresponders. They manage expectations and can even kind of train people to be more efficient in how they communicate.
So instead of I'll get back to you later, it's more like I check email at noon and 4 p.m. If it's urgent, give me a call.
Bingo! You're anticipating problems, addressing them up front, proactive communication, and it works for everything, not just email, meetings, phone calls. Even just casual conversations. Setting those boundaries saves so much time and energy.
And on the topic of boundaries, Ferriss has that whole chapter, Interrupting, Interruption, and the Art of Refusal. I love the title alone.
Game changer, right?
Bro.
He points out that we often just tolerate interruptions out of habit, social pressure, even when they totally derail our focus.
Guilty as charged. So how do we break that habit, the interruption addiction?
It starts with being assertive. Not aggressive, but firm, clear about those boundaries. He even suggests having phrases ready to go, like, I'd love to help, but I'm totally focused on a project right now. Can we reschedule for tomorrow?
Having those scripts ready, it's like having a superpower. Makes it so much easier to say no without feeling guilty.
Totally. And once you start doing it, you'll be amazed how much more you get done and how much control you have over your time.
So we're managing the info overload, minimizing interruptions, saying no, like pros. What's the next level up in this 4-hour workweek toolkit?
This is where it gets really fun. Automation. Ferriss is all about using technology and outsourcing to get rid of those tedious, time-consuming tasks. He even has those funny stories about his virtual assistants, Honey and YMI.
I love those stories. They showed both the potential and the occasional quirks of delegating remotely. Using a VA to schedule calls with mentors, that's next level.
Right, thinking outside the box for sure. But for those of us who are beginners at this, where do we even start?
It can feel a little scary handing over tasks to someone you've never met. especially if it's, important stuff.
But Ferris totally gets that. He has a whole framework for outsourcing safely and effectively. Clear communication is key, setting realistic expectations, and having systems for accountability.
He suggests starting small, right? Maybe a one-time project or a repetitive task before going all in on something super complex.
Exactly. You build trust gradually, test the waters. He also stresses having backup support in case your main VA is unavailable.
He even talks about preventing information abuse, data security. So it's not just blindly throwing tasks over the fence, it's about being strategic and responsible.
Exactly. And the benefits, wow, they could be huge. Imagine ditching all those admin tasks that drain you. You could focus on what you truly love, growing your business, a creative hobby, just spending more time with family and friends.
It's all about freedom. So we've automated our tasks, we're outsourcing effectively, feeling pretty empowered, I gotta say. But what about the income part? How do we create that muse, that automated business that fuels the 4-hour workweek lifestyle?
Now we're talking entrepreneurial magic. Ferris lays out a step-by-step process. Find it, test it, launch it. And the first step is going back to that dreamlining we talked about earlier.
So instead of starting with a business idea and fitting your life around it, you begin with your ideal lifestyle and then find business models that support it.
You got it. Design a business that works for you, not the other way around. And he's big on finding something with high profit margins, low overhead, can be automated so you're not constantly working.
He gives examples like dropshipping physical products, selling info products, ebooks, online courses, even licensing intellectual property. So many possibilities.
And what's great, he actually breaks down the economics of a hypothetical muse, how to calculate profit margins, factor in expenses, project income, takes out the guesswork, makes it feel achievable.
But he's also realistic about the challenges, right? Testing and validating your ideas before investing tons of time and money.
Oh, absolutely. He recommends using online tools like Google AdWords, PPC advertising, gauge that market demand before going all in.
It's data-driven. Run experiments, analyze the results, refine based on what you learn. I love that approach.
Once you've validated the idea, he walks you through building a website, setting up payments, automating fulfillment, even recommends specific services like PayPal, Shopify. Simplifies the tech side.
So helpful. He's making entrepreneurship accessible to anyone, no matter their tech skills.
That's the whole point. And he doesn't stop there, crafting a compelling sales message, using testimonials to build trust, even offering guarantees to reduce risk and encourage people to buy. He gives templates, frameworks, the whole shebang.
All right, so we've automated tasks, outsourcing effectively, built a profitable muse. We're practically living the 4-hour workweek dream. But one big piece remains. How do we escape the office and achieve true location independence?
The liberation phase. This can be the toughest part, especially if you're still working for someone else. But Ferris gives a roadmap for negotiating remote work, even with a resistant boss.
He emphasizes building trust, right? Show you're a top performer, that working remotely won't hurt productivity.
Exactly. And he says frame it as win-win. More productivity, lower overhead, better work-life balance for both you and your employer.
He even provides scripts for handling objections, negotiating that win-win, like having a cheat sheet for tough conversations. But what if your boss is just totally inflexible?
Then, Ferris says, be ready to walk away. Sometimes to get what you want, you gotta be willing to lose what you have.
Bold move. But I get it. It can be super empowering. And he shares all those inspiring stories of people who took that leap and created amazing lives, traveling the world, pursuing passions, more time with loved ones.
It reminds us that we have more control than we think, and that the 4-hour workweek isn't just a fantasy. It's a real path to freedom and flexibility.
We've covered a ton in this part too. Information management, automation, building a muse, even negotiating remote work. But there's one element we haven't touched on yet, the mini retirements.
The ultimate reward. In part 3, we'll dive into how to plan, finance, and really make the most of those extended breaks from the 9-to-5 grind. Get ready to dream big.
Welcome back. It's the final stretch of our deep dive into the 4-hour workweek.
Can you believe how much we've already covered?
Seriously, from conquering fears to building that automated business, the muse, it's been a wild ride.
But now we get to the part everyone's been waiting for, mini retirements.
The icing on the cake. We're not talking just a quick vacation here.
Nope, not at all. Mini retirements are those extended breaks. Think months, not weeks. Time to step off the treadmill, reconnect, explore.
Sounds amazing. But I think a lot of people believe that kind of extended travel is only for the retired or super wealthy.
That's exactly what Ferris wants to challenge. He sees mini retirements as investments in yourself, not just escapes from reality. They give you those incredible experiences, fresh perspectives, maybe even help you figure out what you really want out of life.
Okay, so it's a mindset shift then. Travel as personal growth, not just a luxury. But how do you even start planning a mini retirement that, actually fits your goals?
He suggests starting with some simple questions. What are you passionate about? What have you always wanted to learn or experience? What kind of environment would really energize you? Backpacking through Southeast Asia, maybe? Learning to cook Italian food? Volunteering at an elephant sanctuary?
Wow, those all sound incredible. It's
Yeah.
like giving yourself permission to dream big and then actually making it happen.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that many retirements don't have to break the bank. It's about finding what truly resonates with you and tailoring it to your budget. You can live really well in some parts of the world for a fraction of the cost of living in a big city.
That makes it feel a lot more doable. But let's be practical for a minute. How do you finance a mini retirement, especially if you're not exactly, you know, rolling in dough?
Ferris has a bunch of strategies. Saving aggressively is one, of course, but also generating passive income through your muse. He's big on reducing expenses, too. Downsizing, negotiating better deals, maybe exploring different living arrangements.
He even talks about selling off stuff you don't use anymore.
Right. Experiences over possessions. And remember, travel itself doesn't have to be expensive. Traveling off-season, staying in hostels or Airbnbs instead of fancy hotels. There are tons of ways to save.
He actually shares his own travel expenses in the book, showing how he lived comfortably in different places on a pretty modest budget.
Pretty inspiring, right? You don't need a fortune to see the world and have those adventures. But what about the practical stuff? Visas, healthcare, safety. Those can feel intimidating, especially for longer trips.
Yeah, for sure.
Ferris dives into all that. He gives a ton of resources and tips for navigating international travel, getting visas, finding affordable places to stay, staying safe and healthy. He really covers it all.
That's reassuring.
He stresses doing your research, planning ahead, being prepared for the unexpected, but he also wants you to embrace the unknown. Be open to those spontaneous experiences.
And he suggests connecting with other travelers, expats, through online communities or local meetups. It's like building a support system.
So important. And talking about inspiring stories, he shares some amazing anecdotes about his own mini retirement adventures. Learning tango in Argentina, training with a martial arts master in China, it really makes the whole concept come alive.
I love those stories. They really capture the adventure, the personal growth, the cultural immersion that mini retirements offer. But what about coming back to, you know, real life afterwards? How do you adjust to the 9 to 5 after all that freedom?
That's a big question. Ferris admits reentry can be tough, but he also believes mini retirements can change how you view work and life. You might come back with a clearer sense of purpose, knowing your values better, maybe even motivated to make a change in your career or lifestyle.
He even suggests using those insights, those experiences from your mini retirement to redesign your work life, maybe negotiate for more flexibility, or even launch a whole new career path that really aligns with your passions.
Exactly. It's like carrying that mini retirement spear with you, even back in a more traditional setting. And he gives examples of people who did just that. They launched businesses, changed careers, built more fulfilling lives, all thanks to those mini retirements.
It's a powerful reminder that we have more choices than we realize. And sometimes, stepping away from the norm can actually help us create a life that's truly our own.
And that's really the essence of the 4-hour work week, isn't it? Challenge assumptions, experiment, design a life that reflects your own values, your own dreams.
It's been an incredible journey diving into this book with you.
Mhm.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this thought. The 4-hour work week is a toolkit, but the real adventure, that's yours to create.
What kind of life do you want? What steps can you take today to get a little closer to that vision? Start small, experiment, and don't be afraid to shake things up a bit.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 4-hour work week. We hope it's inspired you to rethink your relationship with work, time, and freedom.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living the 4-hour work week.